We live in a time where there is an abundance of great training, courses, books, and just information that us business owners can use to improve our businesses in any which way we want. The challenge that I face and most business owners I speak to face is not the lack of knowledge, it's the lack of time to implement that knowledge. Today, I want to share an amazing success story in our business where I found an amazing resource. I got one of my staff, a virtual assistant based in the Philippines, to use that course to upskill themselves and then apply the knowledge that they learned to improve our business. It's a formula that anybody can use for any course in any business type. And I want to share with you today how we went about it, the simple steps I took, and the results that we got. Do stick around to the end, as I'm going to give you a link to access the document that's were created for me by my virtual assistant. It's all about improving your podcast, if that's of interest. Even if you've not got a podcast, do stick around, because this method, this formula of getting someone else to help you do stuff is, as I said, applicable to any business. And remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes where we delve into tips, tricks, and hacks to give you more freedom, more purpose, and more impact in your business. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools, and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits, and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success. So a few months ago, I set my podcast assistant the challenge of getting us into the top 3% of podcasts worldwide. We've actually been there in the past and we've slipped down to 5%, and I want to get us back up there. And so I set the challenge of figuring out how to do this. We went back and forth with ideas and we tested a few things and we tweaked our posts and wrote better emails and used ChatGPT, but nothing was really hitting the mark. We were improving things incrementally. We weren't seeing any sort of major gains. And I realized a community that I've been in for some time, Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income, actually has some brilliant courses on exactly this, on how to amp up your podcast. And so I got one of my assistants to go through that course and learn everything she could to put the steps into place to actually improve our downloads and hopefully get us back into that top 3% position. The course was about 3 hours long, but she spent a bit longer obviously going through it, trying stuff out, creating frameworks, testing stuff, using ChatGPT. But what she produced was a framework to help me be more professional in the way I do my podcast, rather than just sort of picking up the mic and winging it, and now have a bit of a plan. So I make sure at the beginning of the podcast, I tell you what's in the podcast and why you should stick around. I also ask you to subscribe at the start. And at the end, I hopefully will ask you to subscribe again. We've also started producing more downloadable content. So in this episode, for example, I'm going to be giving you something that you can actually go away and download and access and see afterwards as well. So if you've got a podcast and you're looking to improve it, then that'll be a valuable resource. So hopefully you'll stick around to the end. I'm going to share the link so you can get that. These small things have made a massive difference. Our podcast downloads have almost doubled over the past couple of months compared to the previous 6 months. And so that's a huge, huge increase. And hopefully that's going to continue going forward. And I believe a large part of this is about the steps that she put into place after doing that training. It took me 0 time to do this. And this is the key. I'd already paid for the community. I was already a member. So it was actually free for me to actually go through this course as well. But the key thing was I was not finding the time or not prioritizing the time to actually go through this course and actually implement it myself. But by outsourcing that responsibility to somebody else, it got done. And that is what outsourcing and that is what delegation is all about. It's about getting other people to do the stuff that you really want to do, but just don't find the time to do. Or no, you should do, but you're just not doing for whatever reason. And this is a perfect example of that. I left her to her own devices to go away and figure out how to use that course to come back to me and then manage me in actually implementing that stuff where I needed to. And then she went away and did other stuff. So some of it was about how to improve the way we were presenting the podcast on our site, about the emails we were writing, about our SEO. There was also some stuff about adding transcripts, for example, to our website. And then there was about the framework stuff, which I mentioned earlier. All of these small things, 10 points that Pat Flynn actually recommends in the course. She then created an audit document and we went through and actually audited all of our podcasts over the past few months to actually see where we'd been missing out. And as we've been progressing through, we're getting better and better. We're getting more yeses instead of nos on our column. We're now up to averaging a 9 out of 10, with the last one being creating blogs from our content, which we're now in the process of putting that framework in. We're doing things stages, so we don't get overwhelmed, but we're actually looking to get to 10 out of 10 by the end of next month. And hopefully then we'll actually see another increase in our downloads. As I said, this cost me no time. It gave me more confidence in what I was doing, that I've got some professional help. So Pat Flynn, professional podcaster, very successful podcast. His ideas, his techniques, his frameworks have now been brought into my daily routine for improving my own podcast. And I've seen results as a benefit of doing it. But it cost me, as I said, no time to actually go through that course. It simply was presented to me in a go away and do this, Steve, and let's see what happens. And it seems to be working. So thanks very much, Pat Flynn, and thanks very much, Von, for actually putting your effort into doing this and doing this so well and producing something that is actually usable by me without me having to think about it. I don't have to make a decision about this, like, is this a good idea or not? I don't have to answer any questions because it's not me being the expert in this. We are relying on somebody else's expertise. I've previously talked about doing similar things with books. So if you find a brilliant book that you love, the challenge often is actually going through that book and implementing everything in that book to actually make it impactful in your business. I'm pretty geeky with stuff, and I actually do spend time doing that. So I've read books like Gino Wickman's Traction, Effective Manager by Mark Horstman, The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber, and I use all their frameworks and bring them in, make them my own, and then implement them in my business. And that is how I've made most of the big changes and gains I have in the productivity and in the systemization of my business over the years. But now I find myself more in a role of strategy, more of content creation, of developing my courses, and some of this stuff, this marketing stuff, this other stuff that I really wish I was doing more of, I'm just not finding the time to as much as I wish I would. So me getting my staff to actually go away and implement brilliant content in my business is how I can make this happen without it taking me away from the other stuff that I feel I should be doing right now. This is just a brilliant example of that. I've been following Pat Flynn for over 10 years, so as soon as I found out he'd got a course specifically for the area we're looking at, it was a no-brainer. It didn't really take me any time to think about, like, should I go through this course first and see what it's about? I was like, no, I like Pat. I've been following him for years. He's got a good podcast. He's a very, very successful guy. If he's got a course on podcasting, I'm just going to do it. But it's not going to have to be me that does it. So Von went away, did the course, got all the knowledge from it, brought it back to me, presented me with the framework, the structure for my podcast, created an audit, went through it, contacted my web developer, got the help she needed to get parts of the website updated, the SEO, putting transcripts on the website, a few other tweaks as well. So all the stuff she couldn't do, she organized, and I was basically just sat there watching the results happen and feeling like when I now start my podcast and when I hopefully finish this podcast, I'm doing it in a more professional way, which seems to be having a positive effect. So my big take home from this is, if you are currently struggling to get all the stuff you wish you could do in your business done because you just simply don't have the time, as you're a micro business owner, you're still juggling loads of different roles, then find an influencer, find a thought leader, find somebody who you know, like, and trust already, who's got some content, whether it be a book, a course, or whatever, and get one of your staff or your virtual assistant to go through that training and then implement it in your business. And just let them get on with it. Let them take the ownership. But really importantly, make sure they audit what they're doing. They're producing reports on a monthly basis to see how their work is impacting whatever it is you're doing, because that provides the proof not only to you that it was a worthwhile investment of time to get your staff member to stop doing work, start doing some training and implementing it, but also to allow them to see the results of their work and to see, how things are hopefully improving as a result of their hard work and dedication to making it happen. And therefore that will then encourage them to go away and do more of this in the future. One of the things I found challenging over the years is sometimes getting staff to do the training I want. And even if I'm paying them to do it, they often put work in front of training. But training is one of the most important ways for you to A, build up your skill set in your team, and B, make sure that you are getting the biggest value you possibly can from those people. People want to develop themselves typically, well, good people do anyway. And so you're giving them an opportunity to learn new skills, which they can use for you in your business, but if they go on to another career in the future, and that's totally fine by me. So that's it. And if you want to get the framework that Von produced, as well as a link to a read-only version of the ChatGPT thread, so you can see how she actually went about developing it, then you can get that at sys.academy/guides, and it's the podcast episode framework. And based on the framework that Von produced, it's now time for me to say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found today useful, and I hope you join us next time where I share more tips, tricks, and frameworks for making you more successful, for giving you more purpose, more freedom, and more impact in your life. And Do remember, if you want to get that framework, go to sys.academy/guides, and remember to subscribe, like, and comment on this podcast to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, and also let me know if you like this content and what you'd like to hear more of. And my closing thoughts are, just imagine what it'd be like to have somebody else do the stuff that you wish you were doing right now, but just simply don't have the time to do, and then be able to benefit from the results of that work without lifting a finger. It feels awesome. And I really hope you take this as your call to action to actually start getting your team to implementing courses and content and learnings that you just haven't got the time to. Good luck, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.